Hello, everyone. I'm Amel Gomsall, Senior Vice President for International Community Relations at Citi. I'm delighted to welcome you to our session, The Resilient Advantage, Programs that Thrive in a Volatile, Uncertain World, for Axion's Financial Inclusion Week 2025. This year's theme, Building Resilience and Wellbeing During Rising Uncertainties, perfectly encapsulates the critical discussion we're about to have. At Citi Foundation, we are incredibly proud to support Axion Financial Inclusion Week. Our commitment is rooted in belief that economic progress and financial inclusion are fundamental to building stronger, more resilient communities globally. We invest in initiatives that increase financial inclusion, create job opportunities, and foster economically vibrant communities. A key element of our strategy is the Citi Foundation Global Innovation Challenge. This program is designed to provide catalytic funding and to support community organizations that are developing innovative solutions to some of the most pressing social and economic challenges facing low-income communities worldwide. Through the Global Innovation Challenge, we empower organizations to pilot or scale new offerings and development models that deepen community impact, focusing on areas like food security, financial health, homelessness, and youth employability. This program is about bringing together dedicated partners to collectively address complex global issues. Today, we'll hear directly from two of our esteemed partners, Heartland Alliance International and ANERA, who are at the forefront of this work. Their programs, supported by the Citi Foundation, exemplify the resilient advantage that comes from strategic adaptation and strong partnerships in challenging environments. First, Carolina from Heartland Alliance International will share their experiences navigating shifting funding landscapes in the Dominican Republic while delivering food security programming. Following that, Mohammed from ANERA will discuss their critical programming in Lebanon and will highlight their food and security initiatives, including their innovative rooftop garden program. Both organizations will share invaluable key learning on how effective funding partnerships enhance operational agility, flexibility, and resource allocation, enabling rapid pivoting in volatile contexts. I'm now going to hand over to Carolina at Heartland International. Carolina, hi.
Thank you, Amal. I'm really happy to be here, and hi everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So I'm here to talk a little bit about a program we implemented in the Dominican Republic, as Amal was saying, with support from the Citi Foundation. So the program we implemented in the Dominican Republic was called Semillas de Esperanza, and it was a food security and nutrition program that started in October 2023 with support from the Citi Foundation, as I said. So the target population of this program was migrants and stateless individuals who lived in batallas, which are rural, overcrowded areas with inadequate infrastructure and sanitation services. They're often isolated from access to basic services and resources, inadequate infrastructure, and sanitation services. We implement similar programs globally, specifically in Colombia. In Latin America in general, Heartland Alliance International has been very present in communities that are similar to the batallas in Dominican Republic, and share the characteristics of being from rural areas and also having inadequate infrastructure, sanitation services, overcrowdedness. So they lead to a series of issues, and often food security and nutrition is at the core of everything. And AGI really believes that if you don't have food security and appropriate nutrition, a series of other things will follow, such as your mental health will not be as well as it could be, your physical health, your ability to stay employed and to take care of your family. So we believe that food security and nutrition are at the core of ensuring that people have full access to their human rights. So the implementation of this program that I mentioned, called Semillas de Esperanza, relied really heavily in co-sponsorship of operational costs from a program funded by the US government, which was called Sin Trata. It was a program that had a different target team. It was related to anti-trafficking efforts in the Dominican Republic. However, all the operational costs, such as rent, operational staff, systems, they were all co-funded by these two donors. So city on one side and the US government on the other. Recent changes in funding prioritization by the US government meant that Sintrata was no longer operationally viable, and AJI had to rethink the Semillas de Esperanza programming as well, to ensure that we could continue reaching the communities, although we had this issue with funding. So AJI opted to pivot and replan to ensure it could conclude Semillas de Esperanza and reach the targets it set for the program, while also responsibly sunsetting the program to ensure that community partners and participants were set up well for a future without AJI and the funding it brought to the community. Globally, AJI always applies a sustainability strategy that relies heavily in capacity and strengthening of national partners and local governments. So in every community that we go into, and in the United States as well, that is a common thread of our programs. In our experience, this is the best way to enhance the chances of continued community support in the long term beyond the international assistance from private and bilateral donors alike. In the DR in Colombia, we have a presence that started over 15 years ago. So throughout those 15 years, we have been doing capacity strengthening and really developing deep connections with local governments. During this whole time, we built resilience at the individual and the community level. The intention was always to ensure that when international assistance concluded, the capacity, knowledge, and leadership remained through governmental and community actors. We implemented this strategy by investing in the operational structure and systems of governmental entities. As an example, sometimes we would go in and enhance a system that was, for example, tracking cases of community lack of nutrition, and that increased the government's ability to track which communities it should target with the limited resources it had. We also strengthened the capacity of government agencies to meaningfully engage in issues affecting their communities. For example, understanding what lack of nutrition does, what appropriate nutrition is, so on and so forth. So the ranges of issues that we covered with governmental agencies were really wide, and they included, for this project specifically, but globally as well, hunger, nutrition, economic opportunity, and violence. When we were faced with the imminent closure of these programs and offices, specifically the Dominican Republic office, we invested heavily in transferring as many additional resources to these actors as we could. And we wanted to spend time with them, planning for a future without AJI and our resources. From an organizational perspective, to give you a sense of the impact, AJI underwent a significant restructuring. We reduced our headquarters staff by 80% and invested in local talent to stabilize the organization while we strategized about its future. So at present, I'm really proud to say that our whole finance team is made up of local individuals from both the Dominican Republic and Colombia who have been with the organization for many years and have been responsible for ensuring that the local offices were really well structured and stable. We also relied heavily on flexible and trust-based funding from the City Foundation. This really allowed us to pivot in the DR to finish up the programming and shift resources as we needed to. In our experience, having partners who who trust us to decide what are the best places to put their investments, who trust our advice, but also our management of the program has been really key. I recently heard something about the best thing that partners can do at this time is to provide unrestricted funds. And I think that even though City obviously had restrictions related to program goals and target population, beyond that, it was really flexible as to how we wanted to utilize those resources to ensure that the best possible impact was had in the community. So that was really helpful. We also had streamlined reporting that made it easier for staff to focus on the programming transition instead of spending countless hours on administrative requirements. So in our experience, donors who trust their partners and provide as much flexibility as possible in funding and reporting alike are positioning organizations like us to be able to focus on sustainability efforts in the community and placing the community first and in responsible closeout. With limited and decreasing development and humanitarian funding from bilateral donors, especially in the US, philanthropy and local actors will need to recalibrate to really focus on those most marginalized and at risk from climate change. That's why our programming has always focused on historically undeserved communities. From a strategic perspective, working with women and caregivers and within family systems offers significant return on investment. INGOs and NGOs globally have been idealized and built within a regulatory framework that relied on high stream, continuous funding from bilateral sources, especially by the US government. What we are seeing is a complete overhaul of the foundation on which all US based organizations that do have an international footprint were built. So this requires our community at large, and this includes donors and recipients, to rethink our intentions and organizations and to reinvent the way we work with participants while maintaining a commitment to serve the most marginalized and at-risk communities. So that's the overview, and I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you, Carolina. That's really insightful points on navigating this shift in funding and the importance of that trust-based funding relationship between part of the International Alliance International and City Foundation. And it's really clear from what you've just described that the adaptability and resilience was really at the forefront of how you sort of implemented these changes, and a lot of work went into that really considered approach for your community. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mohammed from NERA, who will share his experiences in maintaining critical programming amidst a challenging and often uncertain environment in Lebanon.
Thank you, Amal. I'm Mohammed Adoura from ANERA. ANERA since 1968 has helped refugees and others hurt by conflicts in Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan live with purpose and hope. ANERA, which has no political or religious affiliation, works on the ground with partners in Palestine, West Bank and Gaza, Lebanon, and Jordan. We mobilized resources to immediate emergency relief and for sustainable long-term health, education, economic development. Our staff serve in their communities, navigating the politics that constricts progress to get help where it's needed most. Next, please. ANERA's rooftop garden program, turning rooftop into productive gardens for food security and income generation. 341 families across Lebanon turned their rooftops into productive gardens, boosted household income by 26% while improving food security, introduced low-cost, climate-resilient system tailored to urban settings, fostered community leadership, collaboration, and social cohesion, empowered women heads of household with opportunity to generate income for surplus sales. Next, please. ANERA's methodology in rooftop garden implementation follows as a simple yet effective cycle. Pilot, adapt, scales, ensuring the innovative practices are tested, refined, and expanded. By introducing practical, low-cost, and climate-resilient rooftop systems, the program strengthens food security, reduce reliance on external foods or food sources, creates income generation opportunities for households through the sales of surplus crops, empower community to collaborate, lead, and sustain these systems, fostering participation, leadership, and social cohesion. Next, please. Challenges during this implementation. Our operation faced immense pressure from Lebanon's unstable context, household displacement and damage. Conflict forced some families with rooftop gardens to reallocate, disrupting harvests and damaging greenhouses. Social and psychological pressure. Stress from the conflict, displacement affected household motivation and ability to engage consistently in agriculture. Staff safety risks. War and instability restrict movement and place heavy pressure on field teams. Rising cost and supply chain disruption, inflation, and shortage make input harder to secure. Uncertainty, the volatile economy complicates long-term planning and scaling. Market saturation and competition. Households struggle to compete with their cheaper market produce. Buyer question the added value of rooftop harvest. Next, please. Program adaptation. To address these challenges, rooftop garden program was adopted with a humanitarian first lens. Boosted agriculture output by optimizing the model, increasing capacity by 33% from 15 to 20 barrels, and significantly raising crops yields to directly support local food security. Enhanced economic resilience by enabling 60% of households to generate income through the sale of their surplus harvest. Build long-term sustainability by providing advanced training in food preservation and marketing, equipping the community with the skills for future growth. In response to the September 2024 war, the program demonstrated strategic agility by rapidly reallocating funds to provide the critical hygiene and menstrual kits to 385 displaced households in the Bekaa. Next, please. Partnership impact driven scales agility. With support of City Foundation, ANERA scaled the rooftop garden program far beyond expectation, reaching 194 households compared to 126 targeted by increasing 54%. Together with City Foundation and other partners, a total of 341 rooftop gardens established across Palestine and Lebanese community in North and South. Demonstrating agility and flexibility, funds were reallocated during the September 2024 to provide hygiene and menstrual kits to the 385 displaced households in the Bekaa. This partnership demonstrates how strategic collaboration enhance operational agility, flexibility, and resource allocation, multiplying impact and creating not just food but opportunities, dignity, and hope for vulnerable families. Next. Key learning from this program, flexibility and agility in funding are critical in a fragile context. Food security intervention must combine production plus income generation. Community ownership, women, youth is essential for sustainability. These lessons are informed an era, broader resilience, and financial inclusion strategies where revolving fund and cost sharing model will expand our reach. Next. Three success stories from many of these success stories through this program. Life-saving support for child with thalassemia. One mother used the income from selling surplus vegetables to purchase vital thalassemia medication for her child, turning rooftop harvest into life-saving care. Second success story, Maher's journey from beneficiary to community volunteer. With no barrier experience in agriculture, Maher's passion for farming grew after receiving rooftop garden with no today rooftop garden today. He volunteers with ANERA, supporting others' household to ensure their rooftop gardens achieving the same impact under the guidance of our agriculture engineer. Bakeries sustained by fresh produce. Two households who run bakeries now use their own rooftop harvest tomato, cucumber, onions to supply their business. This shift reduces cost, ensures freshness, and strengthens the links between urban agriculture and local enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. The Rooftop Gardens program, it's really phenomenal, and it's provided a very critical lifeline for vulnerable, stressed communities in Lebanon, and a really strong program example, like Heartland Alliance International, of the importance of resiliency alongside program implementation, really supporting low-income communities overcome food insecurity whilst improving their financial and economic inclusion. I think we have time for one question that I'm going to pose to both of you. So if you could go back to 2022, before some of these challenges started to manifest, what advice would you give your organization and yourself to help you better prepare for these challenges? Carolina, if you'd like to go first, please.
Sorry, Amal, you cut off for a moment for me. I don't know if for everyone. Do you mind repeating it?
Oh, sorry about that. So the question is, if you could go back in time and give yourself advice to prepare for the challenges that you faced, so go back to 2022, what advice would that be to yourself and to your organization?
That's a really great question. I think I would say it's really tricky. I actually am thinking back to a session I had with the City Foundation last week, where one of the questions posed was, are you looking to invest in stability or in innovation? And I think that is something that we are constantly grappling with in our organizations. And I personally believe that if you don't have stability, you can't have innovation. And we have seen this firsthand at Heartland. So if I could go back, I think I would be a little more conservative in our planning. AJI, we have a really unique story because we were part of a family of organizations and we got separated from our parent organization last year. And then shortly thereafter, there has been a huge shift in how bilateral donors work with international NGOs. So we've just haven't had time to recover, so we now are bringing things really back to the basics and investing heavily in rebuilding and starting small with a lot of impact. So I actually would say that in a lot of situations, if investment in stability is done well, it can lead to innovation. And what we are saying now is that we are building a grassroots international organization that is very strategic in how it does programming to really catalyze our impact with donors that trust us and that provide flexible funding, but that reaches the most amount of lives as we can. And we believe this can be done with a small team that is very purposeful and technically competent with strong internal controls. And if we invest in ensuring that our organizations are healthy financially, I do believe that means we are investing in communities that are most marginalized, because that means we are investing in sustainability of our organization, and we can invest more resources in building the capacity of local partners. So I would give myself that advice to really invest in stability, thinking about innovation, but having stability top of mind.
Thanks, Carolina. And that's a really interesting point about sort of if you invest in the organisation, you're investing in the community, particularly as you mentioned around hiring locals. There is also that piece around actually creating jobs as well, which I thought was quite interesting. Mohammed, same question. If you could go back to 2022, what advice would you give yourself to prepare for the challenges you faced over the past 2 years?
Thank you for your question. I will return back to my presentation by يعني, discussing more why we set the key learning or the lessons learned during the implementation. As I mentioned, our intervention usually is pilot the project, then testing, then expanding. Our intervention in the rooftop garden and the impact that we achieved during this intervention and during the war itself, like explained to us the importance of this project to implement in this fragile context. From the one side, that I will see that this project not only as a food security, it is only part of the income generation, and this is what comes through the success stories that I already mentioned. Through this, we noticed that we can do, and there is many success stories who like switch the impact of the rooftop from the food security to be as an income generation. At the same time, the community ownership of any project will implemented must be taken into consideration because it's essential for sustainability and for the expanding of this initiative to be more and more productive and to be more and more impactful in their life. At the same time, we will take into consideration the ANERA's methodology for the new intervention by the cost sharing models that expand uh, our intervention from one side, and from the other side it's also uh, give us more impact on the selection of our beneficiaries who have the ownership, the willingness, the need to intervene and to be beneficiaries of our intervention. At the same time, for me, the how to expand this intervention, because also, as I mentioned, ANERA started to intervene in south and in the Palestinian refugees areas from the rooftop, and then expanded to cover the Lebanese villages and the north area. This is came from the lessons learned that we already learned during the intervention and the experience that we had during this program.
Thank you, Mohammed. It's a very acute situation that you're dealing with and sort of navigating. Well, thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Mohammed, for sharing your invaluable experiences and demonstrating the power of resilient programming and strong partnerships. Your work really embodies the spirit of the Resilient Advantage, and we appreciate your candidness about the challenges and your inspiring examples of adaptation and impact. To our audience, thank you for watching. We hope this session has provided you with actionable insights and a deeper understanding of how organizations can thrive even in volatile, uncertain environments. So on behalf of the City Foundation and Axiom, thank you for joining us today.